so that we can go through and we don't miss anything. Okay, so if we're all ready, we've now started recording the meeting. So we're going to go ahead and start with the questions that we've had submitted. Two quite similar queries from two different people. So they asked that they'd like to hear how other practices are managing footfall and learn from them, and also how to manage the demand for their service now that they're so easy to access the website, and creating realistic expectations for the patients.
Okay, what we'll do then is we will, if anybody else is interested in this topic, we'll go through some of the suggestions that we have here at Silicon Practice. So for this question, for managing demand, as we know that for GPs at the moment, the demand is absolutely crazy, we would always suggest using the patient form control. So this is a webinar that we have done previously, and some of you may be using it at the moment. But the patient form control allows you to turn off your forms at certain periods of time. This could be in the evenings if you feel that's best for you, or it could just be over a lunchtime, just to give you guys a bit of a break. It's one way to kind of decrease demand just for a little bit to be able to catch up, or even for the evenings or the weekends if you're really, really swamped. Another suggestion we have is our triage team. So depending on the size of your practice, it depends on how many people you have available, and how you're using footfall. So a triage team is basically people that could be a part of your administration team or the receptionist, who kind of look at every single request that comes in through the dashboard and will triage it out to the most appropriate member of staff. So this can, you may need a bit of training for those members of staff that are going to be a part of the triage team, so that they know which forms or which types of forms should go to certain members of staff, per se like the nurse, a prescriber or a doctor. But then it could help you in the long run, as things can go swiftly to the people that they need to and don't need to kind of cross wires or have GPs answering questions that could have gone to a nurse. Holly, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, that's great. Thanks, Nikita. So yeah, exactly like you said, you know, there are practices that use a combination of those methods that you've just mentioned, and some of them prefer to use one or the other mostly. But there are lots of different ways that you can manage the demand, especially, you know, when you're quite new to footfall and you're getting used to the new demand. Those methods can be really helpful, just so you don't feel overwhelmed. So let's move on to the next question, which we have here. But they asked basically around adding menu items to the left screen to a bespoke page about patient services across the PCN/Federation to show what's on offer throughout the network of practices, how that can being pop up in the participants. Hello, thanks for joining.
Hello. Thank you for reading out my question.
No problem. So did you want to clarify anything on there, or did you have anything in particular that you wanted us to help you with?
Well, I have yeah, we're a smallish federation. We have 3 PCNs, and we're finding ourselves increasingly with more federation-wide benefits that we want to let patients know about. So we've looked at one of the footfall websites, actually Gildown's Group Practice, seem to have done this sort of thing, where on the left hand side they have a menu item underneath where the news and the practice information and stuff is, and their tab is called Your Local GP Network, and they then have a page. And I wondered if that is the best way for us to, you know, talk as a federation and or as a PCN to patients of those practices. Is that the best way to do it?
Yes, so it's funny that you mentioned Gildan's, because that was going to be what I was going to show you. So it's good that you're already familiar with that one.
Oh, good.
So yeah, Gildan's used that as a way to let patients know about services that they can use across their PCN. That is one way of doing it. So they've obviously popped it in a side panel in a different colour, so that people kind of look at it if they want to. But I think with them, what works is kind of like with their page. Actually, what I'll do is I'll share it with you so that other people in the call understand what we're talking about. So here is Gildan. Some of you may be familiar with this, and we're talking about this banner in their side panel. So they are a federated site. They have a PCN that they work with, and they share services across their PCN. So once you click into here, it tells the patients what a primary care network is and what primary care networks are trying to achieve, and then a video that explains more about it. And then they have different kind of topics and things that's shared across their federation. This works really well for them because it's something they can add to over time when things develop. And from what I know of it, I know that they've had some good feedback on this, so it does seem to work for them. But another some of this is something that's quite easy and quick to be able to set up for you if it's something you're interested in. Another way could be if you didn't want to, say, put it on the website, is something that if a patient comes into the practice and you don't necessarily have the appointments available, or it's something that another partner practice can help with, you can always tell them about it there, or your patient group are always really helpful with things like this. I've also found that this is actually used across other sites in various different areas, but they tend to just play with the wording a bit. So your local GP network, to some people, they might click that and they know exactly what you mean, and other people will react differently to other wording. So it could be something that you trial on a weekly or monthly basis and try different wordings to see what seems to get people's attention the most. And just generalize that in the practice, educating people about what it is and that you're not going to a stranger, or it's not someone that's not a part of the practice or part of the group, and that it is all kind of safe and in-house. I think it's just educating the patients in that. Did you have any other questions on that, Frankie?
No, that's really useful, thank you. If any of the PCNs wanted to put their logo or a graphic on this page, is that possible or not?
I think it depends on the logo and the graphic. So it has to be sure it's AAA accessible to maintain the AAA on your site. But if you send them over to your website editor, they should be able to check for you and make sure that they all are. So it could be something that we could work with, yeah.
Thank you, very good. Thank you very much.
I will go back to sharing the slides.
Thanks, Nikita. And thanks, Frankie, for your question. That was actually really, really insightful. So if anyone else has any questions about how they can share kind of information across the PCN or a federation site like Frankie's does, then feel free to send us a message in the chat as well. Christine, you have asked, relevant to that question, can they configure this themselves or for the left side panel, or is this done for them? So this is something that the editors will do for the site. So if you do want something similar to what Nikita's just shown you, if you just contact your editor in the usual way, and they'll be able to put something on there specific to your site or something specific for the federation or PCN sites.
Yeah, all you have to do is supply them with the content of the pages, and they should be able to set it up for you.
Excellent. Okay. So we move on to the next question. We had a few people from the surgery send in different questions, so we've kind of all compiled them together into one slide. So we're going to look at each one. So we had questions around looking at reducing the access points and exploring the use of a capacity tool to let people know when they're most busy. And again, similar question, controlling the number of entry points, possibly having a RAG rating updated in real time so patients can see how and when the practice is its most busy. Managing the amount of requests, again, letting patients know when it's busy, and restricting access for overwhelming patients. So one of the main tools that we can offer is patient form control, which is a really, really helpful way of managing the number of queries that come in. So we do have, previously we did a webinar just about patient form control. So we'll send you a link to the video which we have on our YouTube channel, which will cover that in more depth. But basically it allows you to set up schedules so that you can restrict forms at certain times of the day or the week, and you can have them recurring either at the same times, or you can have special events. So you can basically control the inflow of forms depending on how busy you are, One of the questions that we had was around having a RAG rating updated in real time. So I was going to field that to my colleague Abby and see if she had any input on that at all. So it's something that we could potentially look at doing in the future. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think I probably need a little bit more information about that. So what I might do is contact you directly after the webinar, just to understand exactly how you expect that to work, so we can maybe sort of work together and sort of like working out what your requirements were.
No, it's Natasha here. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. It was just to say, I've been looking at other websites. So, for example, Pure Gym, they do this kind of red, amber, green rating. So I was wondering if we could look at doing something similar. So, you know, having some sort of indicator on the website to say, you know, it's really busy at this time. So it's red, amber, green. So having some way of identifying to patients that capacity is full, basically.
Again, Abby, did you have any ideas on anything that we might be able to do, or?
It's the first time we've actually been asked to do anything, I guess, like this in terms of having sort of like a real-time update for patients. So that probably have to take to the development team and see if it's something that we could do, but definitely something that we can think about in using that sort of terms of demand. I know it's something that a lot of practices are dealing with, and I understand exactly what you mean now. I guess sometimes as well, when you Google something, it shows you the times of the day that they're most busy. So it may be something that we do in phases, that perhaps the first phase is just having, like you said, that amber system to alert patients as to when you are most busy. Like, for instance, Monday morning should be really busy, and let them know when is your quietest times, and then working on the next phase for having that something to be that you maybe manage with the dashboard and give those real-time updates.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful, just to say, you know, do you need to call now? You know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, could we deal with it elsewhere? Regards to the controlling the number of entry points, we've kind of played around with that now. So we've closed off some. So what we were finding is just that we were being absolutely overwhelmed with requests that weren't really relevant. So that was quite difficult to kind of come in on a Monday morning and be absolutely swamped with requests for various things. And, you know, we'd found that patients were trying to almost, inverted commas, game the system. So we've kind of got our heads around that now, which has been really helpful, and thanks for supporting us on that. But yeah, we were just thinking, was there a way that we could let patients know in real time, you know, when we're really busy? And I just thought the Pure Gym system was really good. So when I log on, I can see that obviously it's amber, or I can see that it's red, and I make a decision about whether I want to kind of join the queue or not. So I was thinking maybe something similar would be really helpful for primary care.
Okay, cool. I'll have a look at the Pure Gym and see how that works exactly. And it may be something that we tie in with the patient form control, where you can sort of like set up your busy hours on there, and that shows the patients as well as you turning the forms off. So it may be something that we can work on and sort of like collaborating those two features together.
Yeah, and it's kind of something like, you know, even if there's a divert from the phone, so, you know, it doesn't matter how many phone lines we put in, they're still really busy.
Yeah.
So, you know, was there something around thinking about, you know, can your query wait, or is it something that you can just do over the phone? I don't know, something like that to kind of reduce the bulges in the morning on the phones.
No, that's really interesting. What I'll probably do is write some stuff up, and then maybe have a meeting with you separately about it, just to discuss sort of like the requirements in a bit more details and what our thoughts are and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you for that. Cheers. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Abby, for that. And also thanks, Natasha, for that question. Did anyone else have any input on that at all, or anyone either from Millman Surgery or anyone else who would like to maybe discuss their way of managing the requests that come into footfall?
I've got Anne-Marie with me, but she's happy. Thanks.
No
Great,
problem.
thank you.
Move on.
Cool. Okay, so we are going to have a little break from the questions, just to ask if anyone has any top tips on how to manage footfall. So again, you can come off the mic or you can use the chat feature. So we're just going to have like a little kind of group discussion.
We found actually that it's Natasha again, sorry.
So,
We found actually that setting up clinics for online consultations is a really good way of capturing the amount of work that clinicians are doing on top of kind of face-to-face and telephone video consults. So I think it's really important for practices to make sure they are recording this as extra patient contacts rather than just it being managed as a task, etc. But actually recording and writing it up and making sure they've got that. Doing clinics is a good way to have it on the appointment book.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you for that, Natasha. Okay, so we haven't had any messages in the chat. So let's have a look and see what we've got on the next question, shall we? So we'll move on to the next one here. And they would just like to learn more about footfall, basically. So is Cameron on the call today?
I don't think Cameron's here, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem at all. That's absolutely fine. So we were hoping to get some more clarity on that question, but I guess we could still talk about it. So, just general facts about footfall, I suppose.
So with footfall, if some of you are here just to learn a bit more or just kind of keep your ears open and see what's going on, if there's anything that you can take away from the session, with footfall, obviously there are several different ways of using it, and there are other different ways that people prefer to use it and different parts of footfall that they use and don't use. What I would suggest with any kind of learning more about footfall or ways to manage it is always to find practices in your area or even other areas that you can work with and kind of bounce off. So sharing best practices or even joining our footfall community group on Facebook. That's one of the best ways to learn more about footfall, see what's going on, what's coming, and talk to other practices who are in the same position. So we will pop a link in the chat at the end of the session to our Facebook community group, where you guys can talk to each other and other practices that may not be on the webinar today, and share questions, best practices, and anything else that you guys wish. Our YouTube channel is also very good for finding out little tips and tricks about footfall in very short kind of snippet videos, and again, other best practices that you may want to use in-house. But what we'll do is we will move on.
Great, thanks, Nikita. So in this section, we did have a number of kind of other queries that came in that were just kind of general feedback, really. So we had some topics from a number of people who asked for general information. They just wanted to attend to see how other practices work and any tips that they had, and again, how they learn, or how they manage footfall and to learn from them, and about other practices, processes and procedures. So there are some of you who are attending who may have put those suggestions in. So if you want to, let us know if you have any specific queries that you'd like to ask of other attendees to see, if you have anything that you can learn from them.
One of the topics that came in last minute today was about total triage. So do any of you currently use the method of total triage? Then we can start a topic on that if anybody in the webinar today uses that method.
Sorry. Good timing. So
yeah,
you just said you use it for triage.
Yeah, so total triage, if anybody here isn't aware of what we mean by that, is a way of using footfall to put everything through one column in the practice. So that means all phone calls, all kind of online requests, any kind of people come into the practice will all go through to the footfall dashboard. So with total triage, using the dashboard, you do have a section on the dashboard called patient forms. This allows you at the practice to submit forms on behalf of the patient. So this could be that they phoned up and are asking a question to the receptionist, or are trying to book an appointment or a health review. You can ask them the questions that are on the form on the patient form section of the dashboard and enter it into the footfall dashboard as another request. This way it comes through to the dashboard just like any other request and can be triaged out in the same way as anything else. And that way nobody who phones or visits or uses the online platform will get a response faster than another just because of the way that they get through. And this will just kind of train the patients to know that just by phoning, it doesn't mean you will get a response quicker than using the online website. We have had some practices use the total triage method and have had really, really great results. So we have a case study for a practice in Norfolk who used total triage, and they ended up getting their waiting times down from 72 hours to, the response time was 72 hours to 4 working hours. and we're able to see patients a lot quicker and respond to them, and just in practice time seem to kind of have a lot more availability. Again, is anybody in the chat or in the webinar at the moment using a total triage method? And that could possibly shed some light on how they use it.
Sharon, you've just asked, do we have access to the case study? We can get the statistics for you. We've got that somewhere, don't we, Nikita?
Yes.
We can put that in a send it over.
Look for you. So with the case study in Norfolk, so there was an 82% reduction of patients who failed to turn up to appointments. The waiting time dropped from 4 weeks to either the same day or within 72 hours. Patients are able to be seen by the most appropriate clinician. There's reduced waiting times on the phone as more people are using the internet, and there was a greater amount of routine queries dealt with without the need for patients to visit the surgery. What we can do is we can also send you a link to this case study. Oh, I think Charlotte's done it for you.
Yeah, Charlotte's just popped that in the chat. Thanks very much, Charlotte, for that. That was great timing.
so if you want to share it with other people in your practice to try and get them on board, that's a good one to take a look at.
Yeah. Great. So does anyone else have any suggestions or comments or any other kind of feedback that they'd like to share with any other practices, or just this is kind of like an open platform for you to just ask any general questions to open up for a discussion just about how you use footfall basically, or how you can use it better. Sharon, you said, when are we able to amend it ourselves? What do you mean by that? Sorry.
The website side of it. So sometimes we have things where I think, oh, I'm going to put that on the website for a couple of weeks, but
Okay.
and it's very responsive when we email it to you. But I think if I'm at home and it's 6 p.m. and I think, oh, I could just stick that on in 2 minutes. So is that
right.
something in the future?
Good question. So it's a bit tricky. Ordinarily, we would just be happy to let you go on and edit things like the news on the website, and it's dependent on certain things. So because we have to meet certain accessibility standards on all of our websites, we prefer to let the editors do it for the sites, because then we know that they're meeting the accessibility standards. So it's beneficial for both us and you, or for you guys and the patients using the websites. So what I would say is that if you do need anything urgent, you can contact your editor pretty much anytime. We do work during office hours, so 8 till 6. But anything that's really, really urgent, you can always give us a call. And anything that comes through out of hours will be picked up by our call centre, and then they will email us. So if it's something really, really urgent, we can go on and put it on straight away, either first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening if need be. But at the moment, I don't know if we do have any plans to allow practices to edit their own sites in the future.
I think, Sharon, if you contacted your website editor, they should be able to give you some more in-depth information. It all does depend on whether you are a PCN site as well, and there's other factors that do come into that. But if you are a single standalone site, it may be something that we can set you up to have news editing access. We will just send you some information about AAA and how to keep it AAA. But the news and emergency banners are the furthest that we can go in terms of meeting our accessibility standards. So if you message your website editor, they should be able to go through that with you.
Yeah, I think that should help, because sometimes it's just something that you may see on a Sunday evening on the news and you think, that would help if anyone was going on the website to have a look at it. And it may be something that's, like at the minute, COVID, vaccination passports. We've seen a massive increase in SARS requests for that. So we're just trying to handle that as quickly as possible before we get flooded by it. So I think the news would be good for what we're looking for. So that's good. Thank you.
So yes, if anyone does have any questions about the patient-informed control, like Nikita said, we've got some messages in the chat right now that have links to our YouTube channel, where you have the demo tutorial and also a previous webinar that we did discussing patient-informed control specifically. So feel free to have a look at those in your free time. So has anyone else got any other questions, any other feedback, anything else that you'd like to discuss? Any other tips or anything? Oh yeah, sure. Angie, no problem at all. So thanks for joining today. And yes, we do put the videos up on our YouTube channel, so we will let you know once it's up on there.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry we can't.
No, that's fine. Don't worry.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, so to anyone else who has a similar question, we do have the webinars up on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and look at the one that we've just done today after the fact, feel free to go on and it will be up there, usually about 24 hours after we do the webinars. Tina, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much for joining. So we do have about 17 minutes left of our designated time. So if anybody would like to request anything of us, give us any feedback. Andrea, that's perfect. So I'm glad you found the session useful. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just recap some of the questions that we were asked, just to see if there's anything else that we need to go through.
Natasha, I can see in the chat that you asked about one-to-one training to develop and facilitate self-referral. Did you want to just elaborate on that and we can have a look into it for you?
Yeah, we've got a social prescribing link worker. So obviously just to support with referrals, it would be really helpful if patients could direct themselves there, or patients or relatives could go onto the website and just complete a form, and then we could get the social prescriber to triage it. So it'd just be a kind of click here to self-refer.
Yeah, so do you currently have a self-referral form for social prescribing on the site, on your footfall site?
No.
What we can do is you can work with your editor to create a social prescribing referral form.
Yeah.
So that you can, once a patient asks about something, you can actually direct them straight to that form or send them a link to that form. As well as this, you can also make triages to be able to do this. But what we can do is, what I'll do is I'll speak to your editor and ask them to get in touch with you about talking through this in more detail and setting up different routes to be able to get your patients to self-refer for social prescribing a lot easier. And we can...
Yeah, great, thank you. Thank you.
So Christine, there was a message in the chat from you that says, if you have feedback from practices within a group, how is it best to supply this information to you? Could you let us know what kind of feedback that, do you mean sort of like questions from practices within your PCN or federation? Yes, okay, so yeah, the best way would be to, usually what happens is if you're in a group of practices, you might all have the same website editor. That's generally the case. If not, you'll generally have a coordinator if you're quite a large group of practices. So if you know the name of your named editor for each practice, or if you know the name of your coordinator, that's the best person to get in touch with. If you just send them an email, or even if you call them on the office number, then that's usually the best way to submit feedback directly to them. If it's just general feedback, you're more than welcome to use our Facebook group as well. So you can go on there if you've got any kind of comments or anything and submit feedback to us from there. So I hope that answers your question. Great, thank you. Cool, okay. So it looks like we've covered everything in that case. We've no more messages in the chat. So I think
of anybody who's left, I was wondering if there was anything, any ideas that you guys would have for future webinars if you're looking to attend.
So I've just seen this message come up from Christine. Is any of the forms linking into SNOMED and patient records, or is this solely dependent on the EMIS integration? Abby would be a great person to answer that question.
Yeah, Christine, so that will be dependent on the EMIS integration. So what we're actually working on at the moment is creating a suite of coded forms for you. So when the integration is actually ready, you'll have the forms that are all coded, and we're working with a clinician to get them coded to make sure they're all done correctly. But you'll also have the option to edit any code within those forms yourself. As soon as it's ready, like I said, we will let everybody know that's an EMIS site, and we're currently in the testing phase. So as soon as we're ready to roll with that, everyone will be updated as soon as possible.
Great, thanks, Abby. So I hope that answered your question, Christine. Perfect, thank you for letting us know. Okay, so yeah, just like Nikita said a second ago, anyone who's left in the chat, if you've got any ideas for like other webinars that we could do in the future that you'd like to attend, let us know. Again, you can either let us know now, or you can send us a message on the Facebook group, or when you next, you can send us a. So Sharon, you've said, just to feedback, your team are loving footfall, and it's helped you out over the past 12 months, not just for patients but for the staff, to adapt to a different way of working and how flexible that can be. Thank you so much, Sharon. That's really, really nice.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, we love getting feedback like that, so thank you very much. We're glad it helps.
I think if that's all the questions we have, we can start to wrap up now.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've had any ideas on any future topics or these events throughout today's session, please let us know before you leave. Or if you've attended one of these sessions before, let us know if you preferred this style of sessions. But don't forget to keep an eye on our Facebook community page for announcements or future events that may come up.
Great, and to those of you who are still here, thank you very much for attending. I hope that was helpful. Great, thanks Christine, thanks for joining.